He and George Stachurikis, George the Greek, we have the two highest scores in the league. Stupid Deb's at 1149, and he's in first place. I'm at 1173, and I'm in sixth. Me and George, we're fifth and sixth besides being the two highest scoring teams in the league. It's outrageous. And I've got to play backup producer Pete, Deep Pamelidis, this weekend in tough matchups.
A lot of complaining out of you, Matthew, as always. I'm reminded of the great Bill Parcells, as Pete got in my ear. You are what your record is, Matthew, and your record's nothing.
Yeah, no, I know. It's tough. We're in sixth. We've got some soul searching to do. We've got to listen. Everything's under evaluating. We're evaluating everything. Is what we're doing.
Fantasy Football Happy Hour with Matthew Berry, served by Applebee's.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Happy Hour. Yes, that, of course, was Matthew Berry complaining at the top, as one often does. Connor Rogers, Jake Croucher, Lawrence Jackson. Lawrence, digging the costume. A little early Halloween action.
Did you arrest Matthew Berry? Is that why
where is he?
I ain't going to arrest him. I ain't trying to arrest nobody, but I'll lay down the law if I had to.
Yeah.
But for real, though, this ain't even no costume.
No, it's not Halloween, so why would it be?
Yeah, y'all see me all the time. I'm on here with a hat, glasses, a T-shirt. Fair. I'm just chilling.
That's Sergeant Slaughter. Let's go.
Oh, see? Listen. You see how he got the black tank top on over the shirt?
Yeah.
I was going to go full Sergeant Slaughter, but I didn't think everybody was going to know who it was. Everybody know who Hulk Hogan is, but Sergeant Slaughter faced Hulk Hogan one time for the World Championship title. So, yeah, you can call me Sergeant Slaughter today.
That's great. Deep cut costume's the way to go.
Yes, indeed.
What are you being for Halloween? Do you dress up with the kids?
Yes, I don't know what I'm going to do. Last year I went as... you
got plenty of time.
Last year I went as Darren Williams,
very
is,
good.
I just chucked a Brooklyn Nets Darren Williams jersey.
What? Oh, yeah, I remember.
Yeah. Wasn't super creative, you could argue. So maybe we'll do something different. May well be Joe Johnson this year. Who knows? We'll find out soon.
Another legend.
Yeah.
Wow, very well.
Another Nets legend.
Maybe I'll be, you said Nets. I'm thinking more Hawks legend, okay. ISO Joe.
Yeah,
I could have been Al Horford with you, so,
True.
We'd have been the duo right there.
It's becoming a Wednesday trend here. We got wide receiver trades to talk about. We'll share our thoughts on Diontae Johnson going to Baltimore in just a bit. Plus, time to buy back in on Sam LaPorta, hopefully, and what coin flip games we're betting on this weekend to wrap up the show as we do every Wednesday on Early Line Alert. So let's jump right in to keep it open or close it out, our start-sit segment every single week. And listen, guys, it was a tough game for Geno Smith against the Bills as the Seahawks offense was really trying to figure things out. We got to hear from Geno after the game and this week on some of the self-inflicted wounds of the Seahawks passing attack.
Like you said, man, we had too many self-inflicted wounds. That's kind of been our story this season. We got down there in the red zone, twice, had a shot at points, and came away with nothing. So, we got 3 points. But we want to score touchdowns. So, those are things that, again, we got to be better at. Like I said, I'm going to look at myself first and see what I got to do better and take it from there. You got to own it, and you got to learn from it. Each one of these games, whether you win or you lose, it's a lesson to be learned. And that's the main thing, is that we learn these lessons. You never want to go out, go from a game and say, we just put it behind us. I think that's the wrong way to look at it. You got to learn from your mistakes, and you got to own it. And so those are things that I'm going to do personally, and I know our team's going to do as well. And, we're going to take it from there.
Jay, we love Geno on this show. But the reality is he's only got one game this season with multiple touchdown passes, and the last couple weeks have been tough for him in fantasy right now.
Yeah, I feel like Geno, there's been a lot of caveats with his season, like the Detroit game, just not having the ball in the previous game against Buffalo, just these random plays in the red zone where he just kind of trips over on a fourth down, snap goes over his head 25 yards
sinks
behind,
the drive.
Turns into a Ken Walker running play. There have just been those type of issues. I think overall, just in terms of what you'd expect from Geno each week when DK Metcalf is out there, I think it's a very usable fantasy quarterback just because of the volume that the Seahawks throw the ball with. And now they get this very favorable matchup against the Rams, where the Rams' defense has been improved over the past 4 weeks. They've really tightened up in terms of not giving up as many explosive plays, but I don't think anyone's confusing this with a great defense. And it's so, in theory, it's a favorable matchup. And I think that we're only 2 weeks removed from Geno playing really well against Atlanta, so I would expect that he is going going to be viable, and I would be keeping it open on Geno.
He is QB 10 in Matthew's rankings. He isn't open for Matthew in his rankings. Lawrence, where's Geno for you, and can you kind of ride it out with him here another week with a good matchup?
Yeah, I'm going to keep it open as well. Here, you look at the volume that Jay just spoke about. Weeks 2 through 6, he was averaging 45 passing attempts per game. The last 2 weeks without DK Metcalf, that's only been 28.5. You look at the over-under in this game, that's a high 48.5 over-under. So then you look at the fact that the Rams allowed TD passes at the 3rd highest rate in the NFL. So you talk about the caveats there, just a lot of weird, fluky plays. So I look for him to get back on track here against this Rams defense. Probably a shootout we looking at. So I think that's where Barry's kind of looking at it from, so I'm going to keep it open as well.
Yeah, the Rams, obviously, they got their wide receivers back, so their scoring output should be good. That passing over expectations should remain high for Ryan Grubb's offense with Geno under center. All right, let's get to the running backs here for Keep It Open or Close It Out. Nick Chubb, Lawrence, he's averaging 7.7 points per game since returning. The good news is in Week 8, the volume was back to what we expect for Nick Chubb. He got 16 carries. He was targeted twice. But the production, and let's be fair, the Ravens have the best run defense in all of football, was not what you're hoping for just yet.
Yeah, and it's crazy, right? Because he had the most rushing yards against the Ravens that any running back has had this season. What you do, like you spoke about his volume, Connor, his first game back, he only played 36% of the snaps. That bumped up to 61. So you can expect that to almost go up another at least close to 20%, get him in there around 80%. He hasn't looked like himself yet, and the Chargers defense is tough, but the offense will move better now that they have Jameis Winston at quarterback, so that will create more opportunities for him. Then you look at this Chargers defense the past 2 weeks. Kamara was just running back 13 against this Chargers defense. Not great, but that's pretty solid. James Conner the week before that was running back 15, so there's going to be a little bit room for him, so I'm keeping it open on Nick Chubb today.
Yeah, me as well. I think two of the things with Chubb that were concerns beyond just the context of his offense were that was he going to get workload earlier? Was he going to be like 8 to 10 carries the first 2 weeks? No, he's getting the carries, like 16 carries. Yeah. He got 10 carries in the first half in his return game as well against the Bengals. And then the other thing, Connor, is that the Browns' offensive line isn't what it was a couple of years ago when Chubb was, top, maybe the best running back in the sport. But it is healthier now. They got Wyatt Teller back, and you've still got Conklin, Bitonio, Postage. These guys probably aren't playing at the level of their names, what that would indicate, but at least they're out there now and they're getting healthier. So this O-line shouldn't be the mess that it was the first month of the season.
I'm with you guys. I'm buying back in on Nick Chubb. I'm keeping this one open for sure. Jameis Winston was 8-13 on play action with a 126.1 quarterback rating. That play action game is eventually going to actually bounce back and open up the run. This is not Deshaun Watson's Browns anymore where you could sell out and load the box with the way Jameis played. That's going to help out Nick Chubb in the future. You might just have to be a little patient. Javonte Williams, he's got that Ravens run defense, Jay. This has just been a gauntlet for any running back in fantasy that runs into them. The Ravens literally have the best run defense in football, the worst pass defense on football. They are peak pass funnel. How is that going to impact Javonte?
Not well. Not well, I would have thought. I think Javonte is a close it out. I know he's gotten really good volume and he's produced the past couple of weeks, but just against this Ravens run defense, the fact that the Broncos are 9-point underdogs against the Ravens, and I suspect that this is, for better or worse, kind of a terrifying thing with Halloween around the corner. This is going to be a Bo Nix game through the air, and that doesn't bode particularly well, but I don't think that they're going to be able to lean heavily on the run. I think we're going to be seeing a lot of Jaleel McLaughlin.
Yeah, and from how I'm looking at it, right, you saw what the Browns were 7.5-point underdogs to the Ravens, so this is pretty similar. I don't think this game is going to be that close. So you're going to see a little more throwing in that aspect, and that means Javonte Williams will be off of the field even more. Look, no running back has run for more than 55 yards this season against the Ravens. There's been one running back this season that has a carry over 15 yards against the Ravens, and it was 16 yards. That was Bucky Irvin. So it is extremely tough to run on this team. As bad as their defense is overall, because of the back end, you just can't run against these guys. And when you put that together with the fact that Williams he didn't do good last week either, I'm closing it out.
Closing out, Javonte Williams, brutal matchup as we move over to the wide receivers. DJ Moore is at Arizona, kind of a feisty Arizona team all of a sudden, Lawrence. For DJ Moore, it's now back-to-back games with under 30 receiving yards. There's a lot of mouths to feed in this offense, and we've seen Caleb Williams randomly have these very, very slow starts. That's hurt DJ Moore at times this year. Yeah,
the Bears offense came a little bit back down to earth last week against a surprising Commanders defense that's been getting better. This one's scary, right? Because week 8, DJ Moore had 16% of the targets. Week 7, 17% of the targets. So Keenan Allen's coming on. Rome Odunze's coming on, like you said. A lot of mouths to feed here. This one is actually scary, but I do think the Arizona defense is come and go here. This could potentially be another shootout game. So I'm going to leave this slightly open. I'm going to keep this one slightly open. I'm not loving it because there's so many receivers there, and it's not like this offense is just doing 2013 Denver Bronco Peyton Manning type numbers. So I'm going to keep it open, but that's because there's so many receivers hurting fantasy.
Yep. Open for me as well, just because it's DJ Moore and a favorable matchup indoors as well. But Connor, what do you think is going on with this Chicago passing offense at the moment? Caleb Williams frankly looked like Patrick Mahomes in London and then really came back down to earth against the Commanders for 3 quarters at least. Looked good in the 4th quarter. Where is he at the moment?
Yeah, you go through those first 3 quarters. He was big play hunting. Things were drawn up for him to kind of take the yards that were there, including even DJ Moore. They used him in the backfield on that little swing route. And Caleb, he just took the big play to Keenan Allen at times. So they just need to kind of have him dial it down and take what the defense is giving him. And he didn't do that for 3 quarters against Washington. But we did see him for 2 weeks play at a really, really high level. So
for sure.
I'm with you guys that because of the matchup and because of the lack of depth at wide receiver in fantasy, you have to ride this out.
He was real mobile that game. He was really mobile in that
almost
pocket.
like adrenaline pumping to a fault. He was where he was from, DMV area. He was against this Rookie of the Year front runner. It felt like he just wanted to win the game in one play over and over again, and you're not going to be able to have a productive DJ Moore if you have that mindset.
Yep. Did think it was encouraging that as bad as he was the first 3 quarters, he did kind of figure it out in that 4th quarter, which I think showed a lot of growth to be able to kind of overcome that poor start.
I completely agree. Our next wide receiver is Jayden Reed in a massive matchup against the Lions. He's wide receiver 26 for Matthew this week. He's got just 7 targets over his past 2 games. Jay, we talked about this all summer. With the Packers, it feels like Jayden Reed's the receiver you want on talent, but actually trying to project their target share is a mess week after week.
Yeah, it's a frustratingly egalitarian offense in Green Bay. You don't know if it's going to be Dobbs or Reed or Wicks or Watson or even Tucker Kraft getting involved, as well as you look at the receiving leaders on the Packers the last 2 games. Jayden Reed, just those 7 targets, to be getting less than half the targets of Romeo Dobbs. Seems a bit jarring, and I think that he is, Lawrence, the most talented receiver on this team, perhaps by margin, but it just seems like the wealth is so evenly spread that you just don't know who is going to be the guy week to week, but the Lions really struggle against the slot, and so you expect that Reed should be able to be better than he has been the past 2 weeks. So keeping it open for me, he just clears a certain talent threshold where I just think you have to start Jayden Reed every week.
Yeah, the Lions are actually giving up the most receptions per game to the slot position, which is where Jayden Reed plays. The thing that's scary is getting, if we have another game like he's had his past 3 weeks where he's only averaged 31 receiving yards per game and nothing in the run game, because he'll get you the little 20 rushing yards per game. He's had 0 rushing yards in 3 straight games, right? The thing that's scary is if we get another game like this, then it'll go back to the talk of like, oh, well, we don't know which Green Bay wide receiver it is you want to start in fantasy, because that's what it was coming into last season. Early this season, Jayden Reed established himself, but now with Christian Watson back, Romeo Dobbs has had a couple of good games. Dontavian Wicks is their big play receiver. Tucker Kraft is all of a sudden a top 5 tight end in fantasy. So this is his shot, because this is a potential shootout if, Jordan Love is in here. But so that's why I'm going to keep it open today.
Yeah, and that's a big one to keep an eye on, is that Jordan Love dealing with the groin injury. We have to assume he's going to play. If he doesn't, that changes the projections for all of these pass catchers. Jay, is there any one that you could be the most confident in right now? It feels like Dobbs, since he was unhappy with his role and missed a week, has, is squeaky wheel kind of theory with him.
Maybe more kind of fringe wide receivers should protest their role in the offense and sit out a game and get suspended because it did seem to work.
Since he came back, he's been balling.
It's been great. And getting a lot of red zone looks, too.
I would tell you this, though. If Malik Willis starts, I kind of like Dontavian Wicks the most, just because he's already caught a touchdown pass from him. He's the big play guy. He's he's probably the best red zone target in that scenario. I would say but I don't think we start any of them except Reed.
Those scheme touches to read if Malik Willis has to play screens, jet sweeps.
Yep.
But I mean, how relevant that ends up being is
I think
risky.
In general, in these type of situations where there is a cluster, I generally just defer to who is the most talented player. And I think the most talented player is Jayden Reed. So when Love is out there, I still think Reed is the guy that you want of the pass catchers. But yeah, I mean, there were worlds where it looked like Jordan Reed was going to be like a top 8 to 10 fantasy wide receiver. And that's probably, that world is much less likely now, but I still think he's a viable, wide receiver 2 each week.
Yeah, Matthew has him wide receiver 26. He's keeping that one open as well. Wan'Dale Robinson has the Commanders this week. He's been a bit of a PPR scam artist here, Lawrence, a PPR merchant Wan'Dale. He gets plenty of targets and catches plenty of short passes a game, but he's got under 40 receiving yards in 3 of his past 4 games right now in an offense that doesn't have a lot of answers.
Yeah, to be exact, those last 4 games of yardage, 36, 50, 23, and 30. So I'm going to close this one out. Look, Commanders defense, man, one quarterback is thrown for more than 145 yards against this Commanders defense in the last 5 games. The one quarterback was Lamar, and it included Caleb Williams and Kyler Murray. So it ain't just a bunch of scrubs they going against. So we about to have to start taking the Commanders defense a little bit more seriously here, right? And it's not like the Giants are some pass-heavy, pass-efficient offense here. We're starting one receiver in this offense, and that's Malik Neighbors, because early on in the season, Wan'Dale Robinson was getting double-digit targets every game. He may give you a touchdown with it, but there's no yards with it. If we're getting 60, 70 yards, that's okay. But when we getting 36 and 23 and 32 and all that, I'm good on that. I'm closing it out.
Jay, it feels like since Malik Neighbors got hurt and Darius Slayton really stepped it up in his absence, now Neighbors is back, but they haven't phased Slayton out of the offense, and that's starting to hurt Wan'Dale as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that a lot of Wan'Dale's receptions are in the kind of area where Malik Neighbors is going to take over too, and then Slayton's getting stuff down the field. And look, I just think that with Andrew Thomas done for the season and the Giants, the state of their O-line, that a lot of Wan'Dale's work, like his average depth of target, 4 yards, average depth of target, averaging 6.9 yards per reception. I just think in this offense, Daniel Jones just can't service 3 different wide receivers. And yeah, you'd probably still have Wan'Dale above Slayton, but it's Malik Neighbors and then not much else.
The good news for the Vikings this week against the Colts, they are expected to get TJ Hawkinson back. The bad news for Jordan Addison seems to be that the targets have been going downhill, and that'll only continue with Hawkinson's return. It seems like there's some frustration here. Jay's got 3 or fewer receptions in every game this season. There's no volume for Jordan Addison in an offense that has come back down to earth a little bit recently.
Yeah, it has. And look, I think the offense just overall is going to struggle without Christian Darrisaw, who is maybe, outside of Donald and Jefferson, he might be the most important guy in that offense. And look, there are worlds where Jordan Addison now might be relegated to being the 5th option on that offense, because you've obviously got Jefferson, Hawkinson, Aaron Jones out of the backfield. And then Jalen Naylor is a thing. I don't think he is going anywhere either. Now, the Colts are a favorable matchup, but I just think that he hasn't had more than 3 receptions in a game this season. So what are you really doing with Jordan Addison outside of hoping for a big play? So I think you can do better than Addison this week, certainly.
Yeah, Sam Darnold's actually averaging 230 passing yards a game. That's good. That's almost a 4,000-yard pace for the season, but it's Justin Jefferson, big gap, and then everybody else. There is no, you can't call Jordan Addison a true wide receiver 2 on the team when he's only had 1 game over 70 yards this season. That's just not going to cut it. Closing it out this week.
All right, our last one here, guys. Jake Ferguson against the Falcons. He comes in as tight end 7 for Matthew this week. He's got under 25 receiving yards in each of his past 2 games. Lawrence, it feels like with Ferguson, the big sell with him was, after CeeDee Lamb, he's the guy. But Dak has not been looking his way for a couple games now.
Yeah, that's been tough. Dak just been looking he trying to look for anything right now. But there's hope here against the Falcons, who are a bottom 10 team against tight ends in fantasy. We saw what Cade Otton was able to do against Atlanta last week. He was the top tight end. The 2 previous weeks, they allowed Noah Fant and Jatavian Sanders both to have solid days. They both had 10 fantasy points against the Falcons defense. So that's your hope right there, is that, Dak can get to making Jake Ferguson an option in this offense. And then the fact that Atlanta doesn't defend the tight end well. So I'm going to keep it open this week for Jake Ferg.
While it hasn't been pretty, Jay, I mean, the tight end landscape is what it is. It's hard to picture anyone sitting Jake Ferguson.
No, I think you got to start Jake Ferguson, particularly after what Cade Otton did. Look, the Falcons' defense quietly, I don't think it's really been covered because they are winning games. They're heavy favorites to win the division, but this hasn't been a good defense at all. They just have no pass rush whatsoever, and I think Dak in a dome with time against a suspect pass defense, that's a recipe usually for compiling stats. And yeah, as uninspiring as Jake Ferguson and this passing offense has been, after CeeDee Lamb, Jake Ferguson is still the guy that you want. So I think you can start him with some degree of confidence. And look, this is Dallas' season on the line. They're 3-4. They lose this, they still have hard games coming up on their schedule. It's going to get very loud and awkward in Dallas if they go to 3-5.
To recap, Matthew's Keep It Open, Close It Out rankings. We started with Geno Smith. He's got a really good matchup against the Rams. He's QB 10. Keep that one open. Nick Chubb against a tough Chargers defense. He's still RB 25. That's an open. Javonte Williams is going up against the best run defense in football against the Baltimore Ravens. Falls all the way down to RB 31. You can close that one out. DJ Moore, he's got the Cardinals. The wide receiver landscape with injuries is an absolute disaster at the moment. Keep in mind the Steelers and the Niners are also on bye weeks. DJ Moore stays open at wide receiver 21. Jayden Reed against the Lions. Yes, the Packers' target share is frustrating, but he stays open at wide receiver 26, assuming that Jordan Love does play in that game. Wan'Dale Robinson against the Commanders. He's wide receiver 41. That's a close. The yardage is just not there for Wan'Dale Robinson, and now the targets are spread around between Neighbors and Slayton and even Theo Johnson a little bit as well. Jordan Addison against the Colts. He's had a target problem all year. He's wide receiver 43. That's a close as TJ Hawkinson is set to make his long-anticipated return. Speaking of tight ends, Jake Ferguson against the Falcons. He's still a top 10 play. Tight end 7, keep it open. The guys highlighted some important points that the Falcons' defense is not good against the tight end position right now. And with that, we move over to the Rotoworld Player News. For all your Rotoworld Player News, go to NBCSports.com. And guys, the wide receiver market continues to have movement as Diontae Johnson is traded to the Ravens. The Ravens only trade a 5th-round pick. They get back not only Johnson, but Carolina's 6th-round pick. Lawrence, for the Ravens right now, they just needed somebody reliable at wide receiver that can catch the ball and bring a veteran presence. They get that guy in Diontae Johnson.
Yeah, just more riches for Lamar Jackson in that offense. Unfortunately, Diontae Johnson can't play corner or safety or rush the passer, but I think it's not much needed, but it was needed for them to get another solid receiver in there. Diontae Johnson, just a guy that could get open well, especially over the intermediate part of the field. From a fantasy perspective, you gotta bump down Zay Flowers a little bit, especially with the way that the Ravens use their tight ends here. Rashad Bateman, who's been startable the last couple of weeks, he's actually been a flex option the past couple of weeks. He definitely takes a hit there. So you're just not going to ever know where it's coming from now. Although I do expect them to still manufacture those short targets to Zay Flowers. Overall for the offense, this is great, but Lamar's already the top quarterback in fantasy, so I don't know how much better you could get than that. But from a receiver standpoint, you give all of them a bump. Diontae Johnson goes from being the number 1 receiver to possibly the number 2 here.
Who do you prefer rest of the season, Zay Flowers or Diontae Johnson?
Zay.
Yeah.
He could get it done. He's gonna get those short targets. Right. Lamar's gonna also look for him deep. I think Diontae Johnson will be the guy, like I said, over the intermediate part of the field. He'll probably be the most open guy.
Yep. I think both of those guys now, like low-end wide receiver 2s, high-end wide receiver 3s,
Yeah,
that
just
type
two
of
flex
range.
plays.
Yeah,
They
they're
eat into
flex
each
plays.
other.
Yeah, and it just makes you feel worse about the tight ends as well with the stuff that Diontae's going to do over the middle of the field. So Andrews and likely they take a bump. Again, the only, obviously Lamar and Derrick Henry, obviously, they're the heart of this offense, and you're going to start them every week as no-brainers, and then, Flowers and Diontae both flex guys. I think this matters more for perhaps real football in January.
100%. And you've already seen it in the Ravens offense. They've already been spreading the ball around. We've seen 3 different tight ends score touchdowns this season. So it's really like guys are going to have their days. Yeah. This just hurts my bet that I had both Diontae Johnson and Zay Flowers. They were part of a 6-leg where I had them to go over 750. George Kittle, Kyle Pitts is also included in that. And so it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, you've still got some life there. Yeah, I think with this one, I wonder if Rashad Bateman losing that ball in the sun
was the
final. And Lamar
yeah.
was like, all right, go get me Diontae Johnson. And then secondly, with the reporting on this, like apparently the whole league was in on Diontae, and then the Ravens swooped in to get him at the last moment. Like, what was the rest of the league offering? Like, what, the Ravens swooped in and just offered us a deal to fifth and get back.
He's been traded twice now in rather a short time period. So it's like as far as the league go and where he ranks with wide receivers in the league, like he's solid, but it's not a dude you're like, putting all your eggs in that basket to be a top tier receiver for your team.
Funnel the offense through.
Yeah, like he would be a great number 2 receiver somewhere, with any top tier. Like if he was playing with A.J. Brown or something, he would be good there. But for the Panthers, it was like, well, we ain't doing nothing anyway. We might as well.
I mean, as much as, he's not a guy, he still might be the best wide receiver Lamar Jackson has ever had, right? I mean, you make the case of Zay Flowers, same kind of tier, but
Zay still coming to he's still developing.
Yeah.
Like, we ain't seen the best of him yet. So I could go with that because we've seen Diontae Johnson having 1,100 yards.
Those two
season.
and then Hollywood Brown.
That's it.
Really
1,000 yards with Lamar. You're right.
That's been Lamar's had the Devin Duvernay shows kind of defined his career. Yeah.
Devin Duvernay.
Sammy Watkins was there, I believe.
Sammy Watkins is there.
Insane.
Nelson Aguilar.
Still there?
Willie Snead.
Nelson Aguilar, a big loser out of this trade.
Yeah,
he might be losing his roster spot. I don't wish for that, but it was a lot of drops in that game, offense and defense by the Ravens. So, they might hit a rage move like, damn it, we need to do something.
Some big news outside of the trade market here, Jay. The Colts will start Joe Flacco against the Vikings on Sunday. This one is from Mike Chappell. Colts head coach Shane Steichen. Joe will be our quarterback going forward. Joe gives us the best chance to win right now. Not giving up on Anthony Richardson. It was my decision. It's a fine line, Jay. I mean, you're developing a very raw quarterback that's struggling, and you're in a playoff hunt. And Joe Flacco, from a football perspective and a fantasy perspective for the guys in this offense, has given them more this year.
So basically, Joe Flacco, in terms of the betting market, he's worth 2 points over Anthony Richardson.
That's a lot.
Vikings line against the Colts moved from 7 down to 5 when Flacco was announced as the starter. We had a similar move when Richardson was ruled out of a game late a few weeks ago. So Flacco certainly gives them a better chance to win right now. Fantasy-wise, Josh Downs, Michael Pittman, these guys become viable again, particularly Pittman, because he was just not viable at all. With Richardson, Flacco's going to be better. Flacco just throws so many just crosses and slants. Like, he's just going to activate that part of the offense so much more than Richardson. But this is fascinating to me, Connor, just from an NFL perspective, really, and the fact that they have done this and I get it, there are so many competing factors. I'm not sure there is a right or wrong that you can land on, but just the fact that, Flacco does give them a better chance to win. They're 4-4. They're like, slight dogs to make the playoffs, but they can very realistically make the playoffs with Flacco. And I get that you've got to give the rest of the guys on that roster and that coaching staff the best chance to win. At the same time, you spent the 4th pick on the draft on Anthony Richardson. I'm not sure you've seen enough from him to give up on him. And I know they're saying they're not giving up on him, but they're kind of giving up on him a little bit.
That is. I was looking at some. It's just a new era, man. I was looking at some stuff this morning. Quarterbacks was getting years to play. David Carr had 2 straight years of throwing more interceptions than touchdowns, and after those 2 seasons, he played 3 more.
Right.
Trent Dilfer, same thing. He played 4 more seasons with the Bucs after 2 seasons of throwing more picks. Like, it's crazy.
Eli was bad for about 3 full years.
Yeah. You're not getting – you see Bryce Young. You see other guys from the 2022 draft on different teams already. Like,
Kenny Pickett was forgotten about after
I don't think he should have been picked in the first round.
I agree, but they made that choice and then bailed on it.
Yeah, and then, too, like, right, some guys may be top 20 talents, maybe top 30 talents at quarterback, but then the market forces them to get drafted in the top 10 or in the top 5. But I'll tell you this about Anthony Richardson. I hope Michael Pittman, Goodson, Adonai Mitchell, I hope they all sleep good at night. Because if they caught them damn passes, I don't know if he'd have got benched.
That's the thing. So Richardson was bad against the Texans. He was 2 of 15 at one point, but he was a lot better than his stat line.
It might have been his best game of this season, even better than week 1.
Right.
It was, matter of fact, it was definitely better than week 1 because he missed throws in week 1.
Right.
That could have been touchdowns. I just wonder if they catch, because that's 3 touchdowns you left out there.
Yeah.
I just wonder if but also, too, tapping out was.
That was, I think, it played into it.
Yeah, I think that had to, and I think if he doesn't do that, my uninformed guess would be that he would be the starter.
I agree.
Because that was such just a bad look.
It's tough. It's tough to even you can't say. I don't think you could cover you can't defend that in any way.
Yeah.
Like, I've never seen it.
And they really didn't. After this week during Steichen's presser, he was visibly upset, but said he wanted to keep it internal. Ryan Kelly, a veteran on their offensive line, outright called it like that's not the standard we play to, but he's working hard, he's young, and he's younger than Shadur Sanders, to keep things in perspective here. Like, this is
he's younger than
Caleb Williams.
He's younger than Carson Beck. This should be his senior year in college now.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Where I land on ultimate, and look, really, what's the goal? What's the end goal of the whole thing? You want to be competing for Super Bowls, and look, I don't have to look Quentin Nelson in the face and tell him that we're riding with a guy who's going to give us less of a chance to win this year. But if you're trying to compete for Super Bowls, you are not winning the Super Bowl with Joe Flacco. They are going to, if they get the 7th seed and they go into Baltimore,
what does it mean?
You're going to be 9.5-point dogs in Baltimore. You're going to lose, and you're not going to win the Super Bowl this year. Anthony Richardson, him developing, there is the chance that he can become a guy, and he's so young and he's so raw that I would think that organizationally you want to just give him the best chance and give him a full year. I think, and to me it's different than Bryce Young, because Bryce Young had a full year and 2 games of looking like the worst quarterback in the NFL.
And he never had moments.
Yes.
Richardson's had some moments where we go, that's the best throw of the week.
Yes.
I wish they would have let it played out the whole season. But I'm still in on them. This time next year, I'm going to be saying.
Double down.
I'm going to be saying, you know what, people? I was just a year early. That's what I'm going to be saying next year.
As a fake New York Giants fan, I'd love the Giants to trade for Anthony Richardson somehow. At least
that's who I wanted them to draft originally.
Yeah. There's
Put him with Saquon, but whatever.
Him and Dable would be awesome,
yeah,
I think.
We haven't seen enough from him to know that he is a failure. He's just too young. The tools are too raw. But in terms of right now, Joe Flacco.
If you protect Joe Flacco, he going to get the receivers the ball. He's a veteran quarterback. He's done it. And quite frankly, I think he's been a great backup to Anthony Richardson. Well, he's a starter now, but I think he's helped him a great deal.
Yes.
I think he tried to help him a great deal. He actually said it before the Week 8 game. He said he needs to play. He needs to get reps. But in this particular situation, it forced the Colts' hands. So now we got Flacco back.
I'm going to stay with Flacco, and God knows I have a lot of feelings about Joseph Flacco. But let's just not forget, he was very, very bad in the playoff game. I don't think he played very well against Tennessee. I thought he was awesome against the Jags this year. But, he lit up some really bad defenses as well.
That's a fact.
I don't think Joe Flacco is going to come in and be the 13th best quarterback in the NFL. I think he's a below-average quarterback. He just gives them more in the passing game, and he just can run the offense and provide a level of competence. But, I don't think Joe Flacco is going to be. I would set the expectations.
I'm glad you
relatively
pumped the
low.
brakes right there. I'm glad you pumped the brakes, because did you see the Dolphins game versus the Colts? He wouldn't have survived that pressure. And that's
Let's see how it goes against Brian Flores.
Yeah, Sunday Night Football.
That's the thing about that's the thing about Richardson. You'll have a chance. No quarterback is throwing off a 300-pound D line. Flacco ain't gonna do that. You saw when Jalen Ramsey blitzed them from the back Richardson had no clue he was there, shrugged him off like a ladybug.
Yeah.
Like, that's going to be the difference. So if you could protect Flacco, he'll be okay.
Yeah, I mean, next 2 weeks they get the Dolphins and the Bills, and so those are going to be two pretty tough offense, two good pass rushes, and so yeah, we may see Anthony Richardson in a couple of weeks still. But yeah, a very strange and interesting situation.
Even more AFC South news: the Texans are on a short week. They're traveling to play the Jets, and the news did not get any better as Stefon Diggs will be out for the season with that knee injury. We got to hear from head coach DeMeco Ryans on just what that does and what it means for the team going forward.
So he'll be out for the year. Really hurts our team to hear that news, and he's been such an important part to our team, and just everything that he brought, not only on the field but off the field, the energy, the leader, like the way he worked every single day. He brought a lot to our team, and we have to pick up the slack. A lot of guys have to step up, pick up the slack, but definitely praying for him to have a speedy, successful recovery. It's definitely a blow to us.
Do you feel good about what you have that you don't need to augment it, or do you feel like
we like the guys we have, and our guys have been here. They've been working, understand how we do things, what we do, and so we're excited to see who steps up next.
The Texans going to be looking for someone to step up. First, it was Nico Collins, who will be back after the Jets game. He'll be off IR. But I mean, Lawrence, this hurts. Diggs has not only stepped up in Collins' absence, he's been a target monster. They haven't gotten a ton from Tank Dell this year, although him and Schultz have been better.
Yeah.
He's not a guy that you could just replace with someone else.
Well, the great thing about this, Connor, is you got number 7 at quarterback right here. You got number 7. And now these next few weeks, until you get Nico Collins back, this is where you lean on the quarterback. You lean on that guy who got you to the playoffs as a rookie there. From a fantasy perspective going forward in these next 2 weeks, the first guy you're obviously going to look at is Tank Dell here. He caught the touchdown last week, but again, it wasn't a big day for him or any of these receivers. Can't imagine you look to start any of them. Dalton Schultz gets a nice little bump up there, but the next guy that played the next most snaps after Diggs went out was Xavier Hutchinson. That's a second-year guy, 6th-round pick out of Iowa State a year ago. Robert Woods may become a little more relevant, but nothing that you could feel confident in. And it's not like the Texans have been just, killing it on offense this season anyway.
Run heavy, too.
Nico Collins, right. Nico Collins has gotten his number, and that is – It's like, man, like I remember a few weeks ago we was talking about, like, where do we look at Nico Collins as far as the top receivers in the league? I think you've seen it now more than ever. Like, this probably a top 5, top 6 dude at the position, and you're seeing it now. But it'll be interesting to see how they do probably lean on the run game even more. So probably looking at some more Joe Mixon games from a fantasy perspective.
Yeah, I mean, Lawrence, at the time Nico Collins went down, he was the number 1. Like, he was playing the best of any receiver in the sport, I would argue. He's leading the league in receiving yards, and he's just completely dominant. And the play he got injured on was like a 70-yard touchdown pass as well. And so he's still able to provide value in that game despite playing like 3 snaps. So, look, firstly, Texans wide receiver draft as they drink free today because
tough sledding.
Nico on IR, Diggs done for the season, Tank Dell is underwhelmed. Now, I think in terms of who benefits the most, it's clearly Tank Dell, but in terms of the next option, I think it might be Dalton Schultz, to be honest, more than Xavier Hutchinson, more than any other receiving option. And I think that the repercussions of this fantasy-wise are somewhat muted in the near term because we do expect that Nico Collins is going to be back after this Jets game. And then after that, I think it's going to be Nico, clear number 1, Dell and Schultz, the next 2 guys, and then probably no one else in the offense is viable in the pass game outside of Joe Mixon.
Would y'all be shocked that they drafted another receiver next year?
Diggs is a free agent.
Right, and that's another thing, too, because their defense is one of the best in the league, right? You got Joe Mixon for a couple of years. Diggs likely won't be back. Who knows? But it'll be interesting to see. I could see them taking another receiver on day 1, day 2. I could see that happening.
I agree with you. Let's take a look at the injuries that we're tracking throughout the week. Jordan Love, we already talked about with that groin injury. Derek Carr we'll get to in just a second as he works his way back with the oblique. Drake May has a chance to make it out of concussion protocol to play. That's our latest update with him. We'll see if he does. We won't know more till later in the week. DK Metcalf with the knee. T. Higgins still dealing with soft tissue injuries. Brian Thomas Jr. with the chest is day-to-day. Tyrone Tracy Jr. is in concussion protocol. Jay, it seems like Derek Carr should be returning, which would be a massive boost for a Saints offense that has had no answer with Spencer Rattler.
Yeah, just to get back to some degree of competence.
Right.
Derek Carr, like the Saints this week are 7-point favorites, which just shows you where the Panthers are at the moment. On the road as well, the Saints are 7-point favorites. So if Derek Carr comes back, just everyone who is left on that offense becomes a lot more viable.
Alvin Kamara was a top running back in fantasy the first 4 weeks, averaging over 26 fantasy points per game. Since then, he's been running back 22, which isn't horrible, but it ain't number one. So there you go. That's the effect he has on the other players in this offense.
The world's fastest thoroughbreds come together this weekend in Del Mar to compete for the title of World Champion at the Breeders' Cup. Catch the action from Southern California Friday afternoon on USA Network and Saturday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern on NBC and Peacock. We're taking our first break. Still ahead, can Justin Herbert and Sam LaPorta keep eating good after big Week 8 outings? The answer coming right up.
Justin Herbert, I mean, there's no way anybody, I could have done it, I think. I could have played with a high ankle sprain, could have played it, but I wouldn't have been good enough with a high ankle sprain to be out there and helping my team. And he's got a high ankle sprain playing a week later and still got a 100 quarterback rating in each of those games. I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's like being around greatness every day.
Who's eating good? Served by Applebee's. I'll tell you who, Justin Herbert. He's got the Browns, Jay. QB19 for Matthew this week, but the pass rate has gone significantly up for this team. Does it put him back on the fantasy radar?
Well, firstly, I just want to say I echo Jim Harbaugh's thoughts, just being around greatness every day.
Thank you. I appreciate
with you,
that.
Connor. Just makes me respect what you play through every single day, having to be in this kind of level of proximity to Matthew Berry daily. Look, with
It's a
Herbert,
terrifying thought.
the thing with Herbert is that, one, he's still Justin Herbert. And I think everyone thinks that Justin Herbert on talent is a top 7 quarterback in the NFL, that type of range. And yes, he doesn't have the receiving weapons, but I think Ladd McConkey has showed enough. Quentin Johnson has taken steps forward. Josh Palmer is still a guy. And he has a really strong offensive line. Like, he has one of the best tackle situations in the entire NFL with Rashawn Slater and Joe back healthy. And I think that the first couple of weeks, he was just really, really banged up. And also, they were blowing teams out, and he didn't have to do that much. And now we're seeing that, you know, he's still being Justin Herbert. And I think that that makes him, look, the lack of elite pass catching options, that's always going to limit his ceiling. But I think that Herbert, he can be in 2 quarterback leagues. Certainly, you'd probably have to start him every week. He plays the Browns, and that defense is getting better, and you still got to deal with Myles Garrett, obviously. But the fact that Denzel Ward is really banged up, I would say he's the second most important player on that defense. And also the fact that, as well, the fact that it's Jameis kind of makes Herbert more appealing from a fantasy perspective, because I don't think they're just going to be able to, you know, run the ball 25 times with J.K. Dobbins and run out the game. This line is hovering around pick, so you suspect that he's going to have to throw a bit. So yeah, Herbert, viable QB2.
Yeah, so I'm going to use my sheriff's badge just for that first part of yours.
You don't think he's top 7 on talent?
No. It's
Connor,
still.
can you chime in?
Top 7. Well, let's do the exercise. We have a minute here. Yeah. I mean, Mahomes, Allen, Lamar. We can get that right out of the way. Burrow.
How many is that?
Where's the combo with Jayden Daniels right now?
Yeah, he's in that mix.
Jayden Daniels.
Right,
that's 5.
Dak Prescott. You'll say no now.
No. Just CJ Stroud, arguably.
Stroud.
Right.
He might be number 7.
Love.
Yeah.
Love is where is the, like, that's where people are going to start arguing.
Yeah.
It's at number 7, I think, between Herbert, Love.
Yeah, what if we give Justin Herbert, Matt LaFleur, and those receivers? Like, he probably looks a bit better.
He had him his first 3 years.
Yeah, Brock Purdy.
For Justin Herbert, right? Like, so the first 3 years of his career.
And he threw for 5,000 yards. And
right.
To the playoffs.
Right.
Brandon Staley.
Right. He averaged 39.5 passing attempts per game.
Yeah.
And you're seeing it now, right? That's why before week 5, he hadn't had a 200-yard passing game. You start throwing the ball 35 times a game, where you should be having 300 or 240 plus passing yards. So that's like, if he's doing that, then I think that, yeah, you put him back on the fantasy radar for sure. Even with the he does have lack of talent at receiver now. He didn't have it in the beginning of his career.
Yeah.
He had the talent, but now he's got it. Their best receiver's a rookie, a good one, a very good one who's coming into his own. But even with the pass catchers, if Justin Herbert is throwing that ball 35-plus times a game, I would start him in fantasy every single week because he does have the arm talent to do that. So, and at that point, I wouldn't care who at receiver if you throwing the ball that much, right? And I do agree with your point about you can't, if you're not that effective running the ball consistently, you can't just keep doing it.
Yep.
A lot of people will say, why didn't the Ravens keep running versus the Browns? Well, besides a 39-yard run, Derrick Henry was shut down by the Cleveland Browns, so they had to throw, right? So if J.K. Dobbins isn't Derrick Henry every week, so you're going to have to throw. And look, it's led to wins for them when Justin – it didn't used to lead to wins when he was throwing all them 35 attempts per game. The past 3 games, they've won 2 of them when he's did this. So if it's leading to wins, we love it, and we definitely love it in fantasy. But top 7 talent, I don't know, fellas.
Yep. All right, well, I think we agree on the top 3 guys, and Burrow's probably 4th. Then I'd say that Stroud, Daniels, Herbert, Love, I'd say they're all clustered together ahead of Purdy and Hurts and those.
I'll say this, though,
Dak,
about
Tua.
Justin Herbert.
I
I'm more impressed with Justin Herbert this season than any of them seasons with 4,000 passing yards, and because they're winning for one, and he playing some solid football right now. So I would definitely give him. Yeah,
I like the concept of the sheriff's badge. You might keep that around for when Matthew's back.
I had to lay the law.
Yeah, we might just keep that the entire year. I'll tell you who else is eating good. Calvin Ridley, finally. He's got the Patriots. Did last week change your outlook on Ridley? I mean, look at this, Lawrence. 15 targets, 10 catches, 143 yards. That is all more than his previous 5 games combined.
Yeah, I remember for like 5 weeks straight, we kept talking about 140-yard catch that he had for like 5 weeks.
Against the Jets.
The thing about this is going to be what's their quarterback situation going forward. They may be getting Will Levis back here, and he hasn't had success with him yet. He's had, success with Mason Rudolph, just chucking the ball downfield. You got to see more of this, man, because we just saw 3 games. We've seen him play with Mason Rudolph, but this is his first game that he's done well with him. I had to see more. I'm not buying it. You got the Chargers defense coming up. I like the Chargers defense. Minnesota defense is good, at least in the front 7 portion of it, right? And then you got Houston defense, which is one of the best defenses in the league in the front 7 and on the back end. So I need to see more out of Calvin Ridley before I'm like, oh, he back. Like, we know he's back, but he never left. But it's the offense and the situation that's kind of keeping us from going all in on him.
Our final one here, Jay. Sam LaPorta, he's got the Packers this week. He comes in as just tight end 11 for Matthew. Is there a roadmap for him to being back to being a top 10 tight end? I mean, this was the guy last year in his rookie season.
Yeah, he's the #1 tight end in fantasy coming into the season. Look, I think that the issue is that this offense, again, it's just too equal opportunity with guys even like Amon-Ra St. Brown had 1 catch last week. I think this team is just too dominant with this run game. They're just too good overall. Like right now, I think this is the best team in the NFC, and they're just in these run scripts constantly, and it's the identity of the team to just bludgeon opponents into the ground once they have a lead. So Sam LaPorta is I think he's touchdown dependent. He's probably a higher end touchdown dependent tight end, right on the fringe of the top 10 tight ends. You're probably going to have to start him most weeks if you drafted him, but certainly I'd be starting guys like Cade Otton and Jake Ferguson over Sam LaPorta for now.
Oh, what about Kyle Pitts? Would you start Kyle Pitts over
I don't
LaPorta
know.
rest of the season?
Kyle Pitts is a little fake in terms of his stats.
I don't know.
He's not getting the first read targets, that kind of stuff.
He's been getting that production.
He's getting
he ain't even scoring touchdowns until this past week. He had 1. He had 1.
I'd take Sam LaPorta over Pitts rest of the season.
All right.
Yeah.
I ain't mad at it, but
no sheriff's badge for that
just
one?
asking the question.
But I'm not gonna put the sheriff's badge on that because
it's not over the line.
LaPorta, he good, man. He good.
All right, we're taking our last break. When we're back, last call, find out which games we have on our betting card right after this. Early line alert. DraftKings Sportsbook is the #1 place to bet touchdowns, and new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the app and use promo code Barry when you sign up. DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours.
Jay with the high note.
It's time for last call. A little early line alert, as we often do here on Wednesdays. With the Jets being favored against the Texans.
Jets win, Connor.
You're on it.
I think so. I think so. You never gonna take it.
No, I'm too far.
I could see why.
I'm too far in.
This is when they draw you back in, my friend.
Man,
The Jets ain't convinced nobody yet, but the Texans
win.
haven't been convincing.
It's a lock.
5 games. A lock of the week. The Jets. 5 games lined to less than 3 points in Week 9 right now. Before we get to our picks for this week, shout out to Lawrence for going against the grain last week. A little money line action.
I like the Eagles money line right
Call you
here.
money line Jackson for nothing.
That's right, and I'm not that I'm all the way convinced about the Eagles, but I ain't all the way convinced about the Bengals either. They didn't look great against the Browns. They struggled, so both teams struggle. I think the Eagles just have more talent on their roster to gut it out right now.
Set the bar high, Lawrence.
Shout out to you too, Jay. I think that was one of your shots on
Yes.
fantasy football pregame.
Love the
So yeah,
birds.
we was
Bird
on them
up.
Eagles like that.
Eagle up.
What do you got as an encore?
I'm gonna go Ravens here to cover. As soon as that alt lines come out, I'm hitting them on Ravens -14. They're gonna smoke the Broncos.
I love it.
I'm stunned you don't like Bo Nix against Lamar Jackson in that matchup. I'm taking the Cardinals money line. It's basically pick at home against the Bears, -112 at DraftKings. This line is saying that the Bears are a better team than the Cardinals on neutral. I don't agree with that. I think these teams are dead even, or the Cardinals even slightly better. Kyler Murray playing at a really high level lately. Certainly last week, that was his best game of the season against the Dolphins. So Cardinals win outright.
Cardinals are feisty right now. Absolutely. Yeah. All right, I'm going Rams, getting actually favored by 2 points against Seattle. I know they're at Seattle. Listen, the Rams look like a different team when Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp are back in the fold. Seattle doesn't have a ton of answers right now. It's not just the offense. The defense is having some struggles as well. I think the Rams are going to come out firing. I think they're going to put up a lot of points in this game.
Yep, I agree with that. The offense, and with the O-line healthier and those weapons out there, like they were able to beat the Vikings with those guys only playing just over 50% of the snaps, Kupp and Nacua.
It's only going to increase in this week as well. That is it for us. We'll be back tomorrow for Love Hate. Matthew will be back. We'll see if the Sheriff's Badge makes a return as well. For Lawrence and Jay, I'm Connor. Catch you guys tomorrow for Happy Halloween.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and Rotoworld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Rotoworld fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.